People don't have access because climate change is access. Some people want to blame climate change on why the world's starving. No, the people were starving before climate change. The issue is that they can't get to the food. They can't get to the land. They can't get to the money to go do stuff that they need to do, whether it be go to school and learn, or whether it be put a well in or buy the equipment that's needed. It's a matter of access, not climate, that has led to starvation. Just looking at the first principles, there's no reason why on this planet everyone's belly shouldn't be full right now. And we're right on the cusp. It depends on how much meat people are eating, but everyone should be fed. When the rains come and they destroy a field like they did in 2019, that's bad. Now, I'm not going to comment on whether that was caused by heating or cooling or whatever, but it happened. It's a real thing. And yeah, farmers all know that they got to pray for good weather. And when it's bad, it's bad. What I saw happen in 2019 is that we had a very late snow, a very heavy snow here in the U.S., and then that led to, and then it got warm pretty quick, relatively speaking, like 40, above freezing, not hugely warm. And that snow started to melt rapidly, and there was so much of it that it didn't really have a place to go. And then the rains came, and all that snow melted faster, and the fields were already saturated, and we had the huge flooding that is in the news, all over the news right now. Well, if you look for it, it's there. It's not really all over, but if you're living in it, you know what I'm talking about. I feel really sorry for you guys. So, and then what happened, those farmers, they don't give up. They got in the field, they got their stuff put in the ground, and then an early freeze came. Climate does have obviously an impact on farming, but it's not the reason why people are starving right now. Something that you'll see going on right now is food prices. Well, they've been going up for a long time. You can go look at the cost performance index for food, and it is going up. It slowed down for a little bit, but it's starting to speed up again. And you're going to see that just continue to climb. And that will also limit people's access to food. They're just not going to be able to afford to buy it. So that would lead to some big, oh my goodness, what are we going to do now? Something that's really interesting that I found in doing this study and reading through those papers is that the total amount of arable land globally has actually decreased in total. Some countries, it's still increasing. Other countries, like the United States, it's decreasing. And the reason for that is the land is being moved out of agricultural and into either residential, and have places to put all these people, or industrial. Got to have places to give these people jobs. So that's really interesting. But what is also interesting is that we've continued to be able to get more food out of the land that we have because of increased yield techniques. Now, those yield techniques are controversial because some of them actually hurt the land in the long run. So it's you're robbing Peter to pay Paul in a sense, because you're getting more food out of the land right now, but you're going to eventually have to put stuff back into the land in order to get more stuff out of the land. So even though you accelerated the grow process by using herbicides, pesticides, GMOs, things that have been tailored to the land, these are very aggressive growing techniques, and they require a lot of additional resource in order to maintain. Lots of money goes into keeping the next set of fertilizers that have to come in because you just keep stripping the land out of everything. All of its resources and the microbiome and the bacteria that's there. So those are really aggressive techniques, and they strip a lot of the good stuff out of the soil, and they result in very shallow, healthy soil, and the soil underneath of it turns to garbage because all the good stuff's been sucked up, and then you just got to keep putting more stuff on it in order to keep that soil, so it can produce. So there is more focus on bio-regenerative practices, sustainable agriculture, and those are all really good things, but people are fighting it. The big ag way of doing business, it's not healthy. So let's look at this kind of from the big picture. Is we got populations growing, and we know that if that meat value, that meat unit goes up above 0.18, we've got problems. If it gets to where it needs to be 0.44, we got real problems. And we do need to increase total agricultural output by 70% globally. It's roughly the size of the United States plus a little bit more that we would need to do in order to make that all happen. Availability of good land. It's going to be tough competing with, you need people to put people places. Now reports are showing that everyone's moving into cities, but I don't think that's going to account for all of that space being made up if everyone just moves to the cities. Plus, I ain't moving to the city from my cold, dead hands. You know the reference. All right, we got weather impacts. That's obvious. They're there. They're real. They're impacting our food. Cost of food is rising. Fresh water availability, not that the quantity isn't a problem, but the availability is. And then these big ag techniques that are just reducing quality of land to garbage. The quality of food is dropping as we have more pesticides and herbicides being used, and the weather impacts, of course, as well. Shorter growing seasons, less high quality food because it can't put as much nutrients into it. So those are all issues, real issues, and a lot of people are becoming more and more aware. I know my wife is, especially, and she helps me become more aware of, what goes into the food. What you are, what you eat, and if you're eating a bunch of pesticides, it ain't going to work out for you in the end. From a big picture, one of the things, I hesitate to bring it up, but this is subjective. I've tried to keep everything here factual. You can go double check everything. You can look at everything that I've done. You can see the numbers. You can pause it. You can do your own math. But this part is subjective. If I just look at the world today, it seems very clear that we're being divided. And I'm not just talking about the United States. It seems very clear that it's a global thing. My opinion on this matter, again, subjective, is that the people dividing us, or the thing dividing us, works on both sides of the aisle. And it's just screwing with us to get what they want. And what I see is control. I see large corporations, which I'm not inherently against. They've grown that size. They've been successful. They should be rewarded. But I've seen them instead of being led by moral compasses, they're led by greed. That's the problem with capitalism, is greed. With communism and socialism is power and people. What I see, though, going on, again, this is opinion time. So we're being divided into different groups just to be divided, just to give other people control. Because if you're on the left, then you believe that you need government in place to protect yourselves from all the other people out there that are trying to ruin the environment or screw up social justice. Equality. If you're on the right, then you're worried that you need government in order to protect you, to keep you safe and secure, because there's a bunch of terrorists out there. So, keep us safe. You could be a hawk, you could be a dove. It doesn't matter. They all want one thing, and that's power. And power means control, and they want control over you. How do they do that? They control your food. He who controls food controls people. They control your water. They control your power. And with what we want to do at Eden, we want to say that's just stupid. Let's stop trying to group all these things together and make really large corporations. Instead, let's decentralize food and water and energy production. Let's give it back to the people. That'll increase food security. Not decrease it. So what we want to be able to do is create systems that give you back the power, that give you back your food, that give you back your water, so that you don't have to have that control put over you. You can live a more free and happy life. Now, in order to do that, we gotta change the way that some of those things are done. At Eden, we have quite a few things that we want to do to help address these issues at large and deliver what I spoke about in the previous video, which is what we call Farming 2.0. And as a reminder, Farming 1.0 essentially hasn't changed in 11,000 years, right? You need a lot of land. Hey, look at that. Our analysis proved that because it's first principles. It's basic. It's straightforward. Everyone can understand. It's common sense. You need a lot of land. You need good water. Look at that. We know how much water it takes now. We figured it out. It may not be exactly precise, but it's in the ballpark, and we know it's a lot. Hey, the weather. You got to have good weather in order to grow crops. And how about labor? You got to have a lot of labor. You got to spend a lot of time out there growing crops. That's farming 1.0. It really hasn't changed. Farming 2.0 now is what we want to do at Eden. We want to make it to where 1 square foot of land is worth 2. We want to make it to where you can go put systems in places that are not intended to grow food, like in the desert, the Arctic, or down in Antarctica. We want to enable people to grow food in places where food does not grow. We don't want to cut into the grasslands and the wildlands. We don't want to do that like the FAO wants to or the UN wants to. We want to save those places and go into other places where the land is garbage and grow all of our food there. We don't need to go compete with the farmers. We're not going to go shut down the cornfields. Those things need to keep going. We need all of it. We need all this land. It's not about competing with them. It's about supplementing. It's about working together in harmony, growing food for families locally, while the big guys, the corn and the soybean and the wheat and everyone, they keep on keeping on because we need that too. So our systems are going to help grow food in different places. Reduce labor by 75%. That is our target. That is what we're shooting for. We're going to accomplish that through technology. I'm excited to show you the things that we're going to do. Robotics, artificial intelligence, those are the types of things that we're going to be employing, but keeping the price down to where it's still affordable for folks to buy into this, to where the investment makes sense. We don't want it where people just have a cool toy sitting in their backyard. We want it where they buy something and they can actually go out there and get their food out of it and start saving money. Money in the pocket, it's got to pay itself back in 10 years. That's really important. We want you to grow food all year round. We don't want it to be just the 6 months and done. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to walk out into a climate-controlled facility and grab the food that you need for that day and not have to drive into town or drive, if you live in town, it takes you just as long. If you live in town, unless you live like a block away from the supermarket, it takes you just as much time for you to drive your few blocks as it does for me to drive my 30 minutes down the mountain and to get to the grocery store. But what if we could just not have to do that? Except for the spices and the stuff that are unique. We're not going to replace grocery stores. You're still going to have those. But what if you didn't have to go there all the time? What if you could go out and get your own food all year round, whether it's snowing, raining, blowing, hot, dusty, it doesn't matter. You go out there and get your food. We don't want you to have to depend on the weather like Farming 1.0 does. The only thing that our systems are going to depend on is the sun, and you simply cannot escape that. The power required for these systems is going to be coming from the sun mostly, and we're going to have 3 different power sources on our systems: solar, wind, and biodigester. But you can't escape the sun. You got to have it. It helps with heating, and it also helps with power. But everything else, we can minimize that in controlled environments. There's a lot of water out there, as we showed in the study and what papers are talking about and others are analyzing. But getting to it is the big problem, right? How do we get to that water? Well, our atmosphere has a ton of water in it, and you don't have to be super rich to get to it. So our systems are going to include an atmospheric water generator where we're actually going to be sucking the water right out of the atmosphere. And you're not going to get gallons and gallons and gallons per day. You're not going to be taking super long showers. It's not something for free per se. It comes at a cost with power. But you are going to be able to harvest water right out of the atmosphere. So technically you'll be able to take our systems and you'll be able to go drop them out in the middle of the desert. In a few months you'll have water in it. And you'll be able to start growing things just from the water harvested from the desert air. Now, of course, it depends on the relative humidity and the temperature and everything like that, but we're going to include that in our system. So that's one less thing that you have to depend on others to give you. Now, if you have a water source nearby, yippee, plug it in and let's go. But for those that don't, we want to recycle and gather as much water as we can from the atmosphere. I spoke about power in the biodigester, but we want our systems to be able to recycle all the organic waste they create. No waste. It's got to be waste neutral or waste negative with respect to organics. And we're designing the system such that's exactly what it does. So the digester inside will take, 2/3 of a plant usually is not edible. You're going to throw it out on the ground? No. You're going to put that in the digester where it's going to be turned into digestate, which is your fertilizer. So you're recycling fertilizer, things such as phosphates and nitrogen. And you're putting those right back into the system. Eventually you do have to add some stuff because unless you're recycling human waste, which is the last thing you need to close the loop, you got to add some stuff back in, because you're taking stuff out when you eat it, and then if you excrete your waste somewhere else and it doesn't come back in the system's not closed. So our systems, while you could recycle human waste in them up front, they're not going to be designed that way. They'll be designed to be able to do it eventually, but you got to add some additional stuff on it to be able to fully recycle everything. But otherwise, all the organic waste that the system produces will be recycled by the system, and either to digestate or to methane that can be used for power. Finally, we want to put control back in your hands. I said that earlier, but that's really what we're trying to do here. Other organizations, other startups want to take the control away. They want you to come to them to get the food. The supermarkets want you to go to them to get your food. The big ag wants you to go to their farms to get your food. We want you to be able to grow your food, to provide your own power, so that you can live a more independent and fulfilled life. That is what we believe at Eden. That's why I'm excited to be a part of that team, is because that's what I believe personally, for reasons that I alluded to earlier. But my dad, if you remember, he wanted to be off grid, and that's what started this. One of the things that started this whole thing is just him passing that desire to live off the land, to be independent, to be able to provide for yourself. It's a rewarding feeling knowing that you can grow your own food, you can harvest your own food, you can grow your own animals, you can take care of yourself, you can live off the land, and the Eden systems that we're going to be producing are going to enable you to do that. Now, we're going to build them, but you're going to be taught how to maintain them, and you'd be given training. We can connect them to the network, or they could be off the network. The AI can learn from you, or it could not learn from you at all. We're going to create all those options into the system, and I'm excited to get them all brought together. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe. I welcome everybody's comments in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit the little bell so you get notifications of future videos, and you could also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and on Patreon. In the meantime, this is The Real Martian, out.